Welcome to Cleaning Up the Mental Mess. I'm your host, Dr. Caroline Leaf, and I am going to talk today about the link between anxiety, stress, and decision making. All kind of linked up. I'm sure you've had that experience. I certainly have. I agonize over a decision, but I just can't seem to make the right decision because I'm in toxic stress and high levels of warning signals pinging in my head of anxiety, and I just don't even know what to decide, or if I do, it ends up being a decision that I regret. So I'm going to talk about this link today and how we can manage this. But before we begin, I want to remind you of my conference that is running between the 2nd to the 4th of December in Dallas, Texas. It is my annual mental health retreat, which is truly a place where you can learn how to constantly manage your mind, to manage all those mental health things that can drag us down, those intrusive thoughts that can drive us crazy, not knowing what to do with that depression, panic attack, anxiety, what it means, how to manage it. This conference is really practical, hands-on, and is going to change your life, especially considering what we've all been through with the pandemic. We need a better understanding and a new narrative for mental health. Emotions are not illnesses. You don't have a brain disease if you're battling. You're responding very normally to an adverse circumstance, but it needs management. So join me at my conference and come and learn how to do this. And also this podcast I just remind you, is for educational purposes and is not medical advice. And if you need medical advice, please contact the appropriate medical professional. And there's a way you can help me help you more. That is, subscribe to my podcasts. If you subscribe to my podcast, subscribe wherever you like listening to your podcasts, and then leave me a review. That will really help me. And you can also put some comments and some questions, and I really appreciate your reviews. Thank you so much. And now on to today's podcast, the link between anxiety, stress, and decision making. So as I set the scenario, as I introduced, we can be needing to make a decision which involves the frontal lobe of the brain. And when I say that, the entire brain is involved, but there's a lot more activity happening at the front part of the brain, the whole frontal lobe of the brain, when you are making a decision, when you're moving into an executive capacity of decision making. And in order to do that, your brain needs optimal blood flow, optimal oxygen at the front of the brain, and also a balance between the different types of energy frequencies inside of the brain. You want a lot of gamma on both sides of the brain, because that's going to pull up what you've learned so that you have lots of existing information clear at your fingertips, literally in your mind's eye. So you're going to pull that from the non-conscious to the conscious. You want to have good attention. So you want to have enough high beta and beta to keep you very focused. And you want it to be balanced across both sides of the brain. You want to have the right amount of alpha so that you get deep insight, so that you can think very deeply and analytically when you're making that decision. And you also want to have not too much delta and theta. And that's just frequencies across the brain. You want all the different connections of your brain all working in their unique way that is unique to you, that is aligned to you, to help you to really focus on this incoming situation, weigh up all the options, which are the existing thoughts in your networks of your brain and your mind and in your body, draw that all up and make a good decision. Now, when you're about to make a decision, what I've just described can actually be called putting you into a good stress state. So stress is a state that we get into, which has all those brain things going on. And not only is it in your brain, but your brain sends a message to your hormones. So your endocrine system is now lining up and doing its thing to help you. And your heart is lining up because there's a connection between the front of your brain and your heart. And even your gut-brain connection is lining up. So now you've got serotonin and dopamine and various different neurochemicals being secreted in the right amounts to help you to focus. So you go into a positive state. And there's also a link to that positive stress state is a level of healthy anxiety. Now, anxiety is a little warning signal or a big warning signal, depending on what it is. So when healthy anxiety is an alerting signal as opposed to unhealthy anxiety, which is a warning signal. So both are signals. So anxiety is a signal, stress is a state. Okay, so when we have to make a decision, we move into that stress state with that neurophysiology that I've described. And then we're going to have anxiety going into its right as an alerting phase, as going into its alerting state. I mean, it becoming an alerting version, which means that you're focused, you're alert, you are shining the spotlight, you've got your attention focused specifically in a very, very focused way. Like if you're shining a torch on something, you're focusing in on that thing, and you're also drawing the existing networks in. Okay, so anxiety gets you into that right state. You've got your heart palpitating and the blood vessels around your heart dilating, sending this blood flow and oxygen to your brain, and you've got this ideal state. And then when you like that, in that state, your impulsivity drops, and your decision-making and executive capacities, which involve analyzing the incoming and the upcoming information to make the right decision. The problem comes in is the shift that happens between those good levels of stress and anxiety being the alerting signal, stress being the state. So stress is good for you. Okay, it activates, and anxiety is good for you when it's in its alerting state. And the combination of the stress and the anxiety set you into a rhythm that is going to help you to function at a very high level. The problem is that if we shift from that healthy stress state and healthy anxious alerting signal into toxic stress, and then the anxiety becomes a warning signal, it shifts from being an alerting signal for you to pay attention to a warning signal for you to also pay attention, but to pay attention because something is starting to get imbalanced, something is starting to go wrong. And then as you get more and more into a toxic stress state, your signals are going to increase. They're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The anxiety signals and other emotional warning signals will start coming into play. And then the stress now starts shifting, the state that your mind, brain, and body in starts shifting. So where healthy stress is increased blood and oxygen to your brain because the blood vessels around your heart dilate and you've got these hormones flowing and you've got all those brain waves doing what they're supposed to do, like waves in a sea, big waves and big swells and going up to the beach and building up and the crest on the top and crashing on the beach and little waves and going back in again. That's good stress, and where anxiety is alerting you. When that shifts into the opposite, then instead of that nice wave flow across both sides of the brain, you're going to get this like really messy, too much of the big waves, too much of the breaker, the white, crashing on the beach really hard, throwing like water onto the beach like really hard, sucking it back in. So it's that is now starting when the brainwaves start going like that. We are now shifting into a toxic state, a toxic stress state. The blood vessels around the heart will constrict instead of dilating. So now you'll have less blood flow and less oxygen to the front of your brain. So now that your mind works through your brain. Your mind shows up in your brain, but now your mind is trying to get through this tsunami of messy waves, and there's just not enough oxygen to breathe. There's not enough blood that it needs for that work as mind works through the brain. There's not enough going on there. So your body is now going into a different neurophysiological state. And instead of good decision making, you're going to have increased impulsivity. And that leads to sort of the agonizing and making the wrong decision. And then you make one and then it kind of gets worse. And then we can get ourselves stuck in a feedback loop. Okay, so that's kind of what's happening. So there's a link between then stress, anxiety, and good decisions. Toxic stress, anxiety turning from an alerting signal into a warning signal, and then our body responding, and that is impulsivity. It leads to impulsive decision making or poor decision making. So what we need to do is discern the red flags of when we're shifting from the one to the other. And there are ways that you can do that. You've got to train yourself to tune in. So when you are starting to make that decision, you need to become very self-regulated. Now, self-regulated means that you need to be watching yourself. So when you make a decision, really watch yourself. So I do this as I'm about to make a decision. I pause. I take a bit of time. I breathe in for 3 counts, and I make sure that I'm you can see my body moves there, but my stomach is now kind of blown up with the air. It's kind of square. My body's gone square. So it's that kind of deep breath. And I'll breathe out. And you maybe don't have to make it so noisy. You can make it quieter, but kind of push it out. And I might do that a few times. So I'll breathe in for 3 and then out for 7. You may have heard me teach this before, called the 10-second pause. And as I'm doing that, I know that I'm going to start getting my red flag where I'm shifting into toxic stress and anxiety becoming a warning signal instead of an alerting signal. I'm going to start restoring that balance. We have to get our neurophysiology under control to a certain extent in order to get, because our mind's working through our brain and our body and all that neurochemistry. And when it's like a big mess, it's like a big log in the road, your car can't drive through it. You want to get it back calm again. So the breathing helps to do that neurophysiology. It also buys you a little bit of time, a little bit of space in which you can just pause and get your brain and body calm again, and get your messy mind calm, get your wise mind back online. And that's going to bring in a lot of that gamma activity, which is then going to, when gamma starts being increasing again, it starts creating a lot of integration in your brain and insight, and you start pulling on memories. So you just need a little bit of time for that to start happening again, and that starts shifting you back in again to the healthier state. And then once you've done that, then you can start basically re-looking at the information to make the decision. And if you feel that you don't have enough information or you don't have enough time, it's then important for you to try and buy more time by saying, okay, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to give you a decision later. If you have to make a decision on the spot, like maybe you're a medical doctor and you need to make a decision on the spot, or it's related to something with your kids, or related to, I don't know what, it could be a million different things that you need to make the decision quicker than in an hour's time or a day's time or something, then do a few more of those 10-second pauses, that breathing in for 3 and out for 7, to just give yourself that get that neurochemical chaos under control. As you come out of that, then quickly gather awareness. Am I in a warning state? Is that anxiety that I'm going into a warning level? How can I move it back to an alerting level? And that's where you can draw on existing memories, context. You have been in challenging situations before, maybe not exactly this one, but could be similar ones. So you quickly remind yourself of how I've been in challenging situations before and I've managed to get through it. So you give yourself a little bit of confidence. Maybe you can quickly recall something. Maybe as you're doing that, you will start thinking that'll give you the space to export. It gets the gamma activity going, which then digs around to find something in your trillions of memory networks and pulls up a nice, healthy thought from the past, or a few of them. I'm holding up a green tree for those of you that are listening, to then help you to be able to draw on information, to be able to have more context, because we need context in our decision making. And then it may be that you start making that decision and you see that, okay, it's partially good, it's not so good. And so in other words, still self-regulating. So you pull up that information, you evaluate that information, you visualize as much as you can, because you may not have time. If you have time, you can write it down. You analytically analyze, okay, I could do this is the context, these are my options, look at the possibilities, do this. So don't just jump in and say something. Look now at your possibilities, question. That would be your recheck step, number 4 of the neurocycle. So you've become aware, you've gathered, you've reflected, you've visualized, or if you've had time, you've written it down. And now you're going to recheck and think, okay, based on this context or what I've done in the past, what would be the best option? I'm not absolutely sure. I think I'll try this. And your action would be then, okay, this is going to be my decision in this moment. You make that decision and then you look at the impact. So you now do another quick neurocycle where you get the awareness of the impact of that decision. And then you start reanalyzing that through, okay, did this work? Look at the impact on the people, on the impact of the email that you sent. You may not see the impact immediately. You may see the impact immediately. So if you do see the impact immediately, if you see that it's not quite working, dive in and repair. Gather the data, let it feed back to you. That's not quite right, partially correct. Gather awareness of that. Think through, what should I do to what more information do I need? What's happening here? What's going on? Visualize or write it down. Recheck, okay, how can I see this differently? What more information do I need? How can I see this in another way? What's the other perspective? What do I need to add? And then add another layer to your decision. And you may have to go through a few cycles of those if you're in an immediate situation to solve whatever it is that you're solving or decision that you need to make. And the more you practice this, the quicker and the better you get at that. The point is that you're being very controlled. You're letting your wise mind work with your messy mind to keep clarity neurophysiologically, blood, oxygen, waves, etc., so that your mind can work through a clean pathway to dig into your unconscious. And when you dig very deep into your unconscious, you may not even have any existing thought trees related to that, but you do have wisdom inside of you. We all have wisdom, and we need to draw on that wisdom to make good decisions. And this process I'm describing of this breathing and then going through the neurocycle like that in quick little bursts, 5 seconds, is going to keep you very controlled and regulated and systematic. You're systematically driving the neuroplasticity of your brain. So those are a few tips on how you can improve the link between anxiety being a signal, stress being a state, and the link to decision making. And when you bring those three together, they can work for you or against you. And the way to assess when you're shifting is to gather awareness of how you are reacting. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. How do you know that you're shifting? You need to gather awareness. And what are you going to gather awareness? Gather awareness of how you are feeling emotionally. Is the anxiety blocking your ability to see clarity? Or is your anxiety making you actually see a lot of stuff that could be, and you feel yourself kind of driving in the direction of, I can understand this information. I can see what the different options potentially could be. I'm thinking of more stuff. That's good anxiety. It's alerting anxiety. It's healthy stress. And then the toxic anxiety is, I can't see what's going on. There's a fog. I'm now feeling anger or frustration or worry, or I'm falling into a panic. So when there's more confusion, when things start getting very confused, then you know that you're moving into, that's your red flag, that you're shifting over. And so that you can look at those emotions. You can also be aware of your body. Your heart will palpitate. You will have adrenaline rushes. Your shoulders will tense up as you prepare to become alert, because that's all your body orienting to that and preparing you for that decision and what you have to do. So you get those same things, but the healthy version is you feel yourself moving forward, but the toxic one, you feel yourself stuck. You feel like you're going backwards. You feel like you're collapsing. You feel like you're immersed. You feel like you're going to vomit from, and that's going to incapacitate you, as opposed to I feel nauseous because I'm really scared to talk in front of these people or whatever, versus I'm nauseous that it's incapacitating me. So one is moving you forward and you're seeing more. The one is making you feel completely stuck. Then you're moving into toxic stress, and where anxiety is becoming toxic. Okay, and the other emotions. So look at the emotions, the sort of level of the emotion, and look at what's happening inside of your body. So you just have to focus on those two signals, and those are two red flags that will really help you understand the shift. Clarity is always linked with an alerting state, good anxiety, healthy stress, and confusion. And I'm not talking about, you can have confusion in terms in the alerting states. You can be, what is the best thing? I'm not talking about that kind of clear confusion. I'm talking about where you feel completely overwhelmed, where you just don't know what to do, where you feel stuck. Then you know you're shifting over. And that's when your body starts feeling like you can't cope. You feel like you're going to collapse, and you feel like you can't get yourself back. So when that starts happening, that's when you need to start doing the breathing. You need to get the time, buy as much time as you can, because whatever you do in that state is not going to work for you. You've got to get yourself back into the healthy state. So I hope this has helped you. And for more tips and techniques, follow me on Instagram. Dr. Caroline Leaf is my social media handle. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter as well. And every day I'll give you tips and things that are going to help you understand all these complex things that I teach that will really help you through the day. So follow me on social media. There's so many podcasts that you can listen to. So subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to my podcast, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, and connect with me. Send me questions. Send me things that you'd like me to talk about. I hope to see you again next time. Thanks for joining me. I'm Dr. Caroline Leaf.